Hi guys, Rob Ailing here, just to let you know that David Osgood and Craig McDonald from Well Good Movies are going to be hosting their Endgame episode very soon, and this year they're actually going to be raising money for the RSPCA, which is the world's oldest, largest animal welfare charity, with the primary focus of rescuing, rehabilitating and rehoming or releasing animals across England and Wales. So any help and any shares is much appreciated, as they hope to go into the new year having smashed a target, raising awareness for important issues like animal adoption and safety, and giving money back to the RSPCA so that they can continue to do vital work. So give whatever you can, even the smallest donation really does help. That's it from me. Have a cracking new year and enjoy the Well Good Movies episode.
Okay, people, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., Santa's coming to town. Oh, my God!
I know him. Oh, Christmas isn't just a day. It's a frame of mind.
I made my family disappear.
Put that cookie down! Now!
It's not the bazaar, it's a silly naughty boy.
I'll just see my pretty.
And beyond!
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
Well, good movies.
Hello and welcome to Well Good Movies, the podcast that gives you the movies well worth watching, even when there's bumps in the sleigh. I am today's Santa Claus, delivering presents with the help of my co-host, who's undoubtedly waiting for me to slip on the roof and steal my coat. It's Craig McDonald.
What?
The Santa Claus, Craig, the Tim Allen film.
Oh, right.
Come on.
Yeah,
you
sorry.
basically are waiting for me to die and fall off a roof.
Yeah, I don't think in that film he was eagerly awaiting the death of Santa. I thought it was just like
but
a sheer...
you would.
Jesus Christ.
I thought it was well timed. There's a random Santa Claus series now on Disney Plus, which is a weird world we live in now.
Yeah, there's basically just everything on Disney Plus at this point. Like nothing surprises me anymore. Just nothing.
Everything has become a series or spin-off or another film. So yeah, welcome everyone to our sort of Christmas episode, the Christmas special before the big day, and our Endgame special, which is coming up this year as well, which will be coming out after Christmas. So Craig, are you excited? Obviously this is a good chance to mention once again our big special which we're doing, and it's a very special one because we are raising some money this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously looking forward to it. I mean, I don't know what I'm looking forward to more, the actual release of the episode and getting all the games done, or the fact that I can stop talking about it, because you have had me making adverts for this for last 3-4 months now. I'm starting to experience the no time to die effect, where I'm just like, okay, can we just actually have it now? But
it's because it's the Endgame special. It's like that film, Avengers Endgame. It was just like, we're just gonna give you one teaser and then like make you wait. I'm like, nah, let's just keep advertising it.
But yeah, no, I think it'll be good. And obviously, I feel that what we're actually trying to do is a little bit more interactive with our audience this time, in that we're basically asking our audience to please give us money towards a cause that we generally quite care about, and something that a lot of our guests generally care about in the first place. Because, I mean, let's face it, a lot of people have brought a lot of different animals onto this podcast. A lot of people have had us watch films about different animals in the past. So it's kind of nice to give back in that way. And it's very much something that I think if we're able to get basically what we're looking for, I think it'll be great for everyone. So basically, yeah, once we release the links out there, guys, please support. Please give whatever you can. Please share if you're not able to, or even if you are able to, just help us sort of get the word out. But also, just when the special is out, enjoy it, rate it, hopefully laugh at it. Yeah, just all the good things that we sort of request from what is going to be undoubtedly a very chaotic episode.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't know, in our last episode we mentioned the cause that we are supporting, and it has been on our socials at this stage. So it is the RSPCA, due to that kind of like link to animals, and obviously they help all types of animals, and they do campaigns this time of year. Obviously dogs are not just for Christmas kind of stuff. All about adoption, helping cats and wildlife, and all that kind of stuff. So if you can help us out, just the smallest donation really helps. We set ourselves an ambitious target of £250, as this is our first year, but we're going in, and hopefully, whether that target rises or whether it stays where it is, we'll be really happy to hit that target and raise some money for a really important cause. So if you are able to donate, as Craig said, then just go to www.justgiving.com/page/wellgoodmovies. Or if you go on any of our socials, I'm sure you'll find it pinned to the top of the page, or you'll find information on freshtakehub.com as well. So yeah, please do go give. It'll be a massive help towards us, especially before our Endgame special comes out, so we can go into it with some great news. But on to this week's episode, which is also kind of animal themed as well, with the film we're talking about and some of the other films. We've used this opportunity talking about Christmas films to talk about a few Christmas shorts, as this one was a bit of a shorter film that was suggested to us. And discussing today's film and other shorts with us, we've got two guests, one who is returning from a previous episode and one who's brand new. So let's get to their introductions. So first of all, it is our favourite Scottish editor and podcaster. It's Mary Muñoz. Hello, Mary.
Hello, thank you so much for having me back.
Oh, it's
welcome back.
It's our pleasure. I'm sure Craig was a bit nervous, maybe from the film that you suggested last time. He's
still in therapy for that trauma.
Yeah, I wasn't best pleased.
But I saw you kind of smiling with the whole, like, people have brought animals on the podcast, so I know your cat has definitely made, if not like an appearance on recording, it was definitely trying to, I think, last time.
Definitely trying to last time. She also gate crashed a meeting this afternoon, full view of things that shouldn't be seen. So the door is currently shut, just so she doesn't do a repeat performance tonight.
Well, we can't wait to have a proper catch up with you later. Are you feeling Christmassy? How are you feeling?
I am Mrs. Christmas. Come the weekend, my house will be covered in tartan and fairy lights, and obviously I've got my wee son on a Christmas jumper just now, so I'm fully ready for this. Perfect.
And okay, so yeah, we'll look forward to talking all about Christmas and Christmas shorts, etc. later on. So next up, it's his first time on the podcast. We're thrilled to welcome to Well Good Movies freelance film, music and TV journalist. It is Chris Connor. Hello, Chris.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem.
No, absolutely.
Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the chaos. And same question to you. Are you feeling Christmassy?
Yeah, I think so. Look forward to a few snowballs and sort of have a Christmas-themed food and drink. Be nice. Mince pies.
Do you often get the joke or the pun of like, oh, it's Christmas, or like?
Oh yeah, I think that was my Twitter handle last year. Actually, might do that again this year.
Okay, well at least you've kind of embraced it.
Got in on the fun.
Yeah,
it's very much why we have you on for this episode.
Christmas just chaos, like right, yeah. Let's look through all the Chris's. First up, let's talk about the film we're discussing, even though we got a few smaller ones which we'll be bringing up. But there's our main film, which was suggested in the last episode. So, Craig, for those who didn't catch the last episode, check it out if you haven't. For those who just need a reminder, what is it we're discussing and what led us here today?
So, last episode, we managed to get my way and we got to discuss Anna and the Apocalypse, very much abandoning our last bastions of Halloween and coming very much into the Christmas season with that film. And in the end, it did get into the movie vault. And after a strong performance in the Endgame by Laura, accurately pointing out which of the various titles that we presented were musicals and which were not, decided to go for an unconventional choice based on one single joke made in Anna and the Apocalypse, because this is an entire film basically about that joke, that being Olive the Other Reindeer.
Here's a special look at the making of Olive the Other Reindeer. The fact that I actually got to do the voice, too, on top of it was just so much fun. And I have so many dogs, and I love this character so much, and it was really fun to finally get to put all these weird noises that I hear in my house all day to some use.
Yeah!
Martini's kind of typecasting, you know. It's like I'm very, I very much identify with what he does and who he is.
Stand up for free enterprise. Fight the man. Buy a luxury timepiece, Pooch.
I've played nice guys before, but I haven't played. I haven't played a nice guy with this type of problem.
How are your dog chores coming? Did you bury any bones today?
No, Tim.
Chase any cars or cats?
Afraid not.
Did you even make a token attempt to tear up any flower beds?
My character is a reindeer named Schnitzel, who can't fly, but he can sing, and he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder.
You don't look like no reindeer to me, mutt.
Well, I am, and my name's Olive.
Because of the strong lead character, which is done beautifully by Drew Barrymore. She's... What?
I'm doing the visuals.
Oh,
you're
are
doing
you
the
acting?
audio commentary, and I'll do
Okay.
the lead character, you see.
The lead character, Olive.
So Olive, the Other Reindeer, kind of classed as a TV movie, which has led us down the kind of topic we're going to go down today. It's just 45 minutes long, possibly out there, places like Amazon to pick up on Blu-ray and DVD, etc. But we catched it on YouTube, one of the few films that we've had struggled to find so far on this podcast. But yeah, in terms of the details for it, the summary is: when Santa cancels his annual flight because of a hurt reindeer, a young Christmas-loving dog named Olive is convinced she has what it takes to get Santa's flight off the ground and save Christmas. It is directed by Steve Moore. The writers credited are J. Otto Seibold, who is like the original book writer, along with Vivian Walsh, and then Steve Young is credited for the special itself. Quite a big famous cast as well. You've got Drew Barrymore as Olive, Dan Castellaneta as the postman, Joe Pantoliano, Edward Asner, Peter McNichol, Tim Meadows, Jay Moore, Michael Stipe, a whole host of animation alumni which you'll have heard in many animated series, especially because Matt Groening is involved in this, who also does a voice in the special. And you hear the likes of like Billy West as well, who, you know, people know from Futurama, etc. So yeah, a very random choice. One of the most random ones we've definitely had. And I love the fact that Laura just literally lifted the DVD copy she had of it in the last episode from when she watched it as a child. But yeah, it's quite the connection from the previous film. Now, Craig, we say at the top of the episode that we discuss the films that are well worth watching, and in this circumstance, if they are bumps in the sleigh. But what would you say is the case for Olive, the Other Reindeer, for yourself?
I mean, I have to classify this as a bump insofar as I figured as a small interruption in our overall journey, because this is basically just not a film. I'm gonna die on that hill. This is not a film.
Well, just as well, we got plenty of other short films to pad things up as well. So we'll go through those. We took some suggestions from our guests as to some of their favorite Christmas shorts, but you know, it does kind of feel fitting that we are talking about things like TV movies and television specials at, you know, Christmas, because they are such a big part of that, you know, seasonal time of year. So yeah, we'll get to our thoughts all about Olive, the Other Reindeer, and some other films later on. But before we find out our guests' thoughts, let's have an official introduction and catch up as well. So we'll start with you, Chris. Please, like we said at the beginning, you know, you're a freelance writer. What sort of publications do you work for? What work are you involved in?
Yeah, so I've kind of been writing about all sorts of cultural things for a few years now while I was at university, and then since working as well, Mary and I both Jump Cut alumni, so we're both regulars there, and then I've also kind of written for some nationals, so the Radio Times, NME, Metro, and Yahoo. Anyone else is slipping my mind, which is unbelievable. And that's been mostly in the last couple of years because I work from home, so I have the opportunity to do this sort of stuff, and covered London Film Festival the last couple of years. which has been really good. And one of my suggestions I actually saw at LFF in 2021, I think it was. So I'll mention that more when we come to it.
And usually we try to find out of our guests, like, what is their kind of, obviously a lot of film buffs will be into everything, but do you have a certain favorite genre or certain type of film, when it comes to like getting to know you as a film person?
God, it's a tough one. I don't think so. I think it's quite a wide range. That one day it could be musical, then sci-fi. The only one I'm not as keen on, but I still watch a few, is horror. I'm not a mega horror person, but I'm trying to come around on that one because I kind of think you can't be a good film fan if you don't like, a bit of everything. But yeah, been going through more musicals lately, and I think Christmas, there's obviously a few good musicals around there as well. Singing in the Rain's always on TV at Christmas and things like that. But yeah, I think parents and grandparents and everyone had quite wide-ranging taste, so I think it's kind of rubbed off.
And lastly, Chris, we're talking about Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
This might be on the spot, but favorite Christmas song?
Song. I like the Nat King Cole one. Is that the Christmas song? All chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
The Christmas song, yeah.
That's probably my favourite. It's just perfect. And oddly, I heard he recorded it in July, as with all good Christmas songs. So, but it still sounds great. So there you go.
Yeah. Back now to Mary. So I saw you there nodding your head and smiling when we're talking about Christmas. As you said, you are Mrs. Christmas. So I'll ask you that. I'll get that question out the way. Favorite Christmas song?
Shakin' Stevens, Merry Christmas, everyone. Just one of the best songs ever written. Never mind, one of the best Christmas songs.
Fun fact, I know a guy who's related to him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a guy in my friendship circle. I think he's like a great nephew. I'll have to double check the actual connection, but he says he runs into him every now and then at family events, usually closer to Christmas, ironically.
And does he sing at family events?
I think everyone is respectful enough to leave him alone.
I was kind of wrangling for an invite there, but yeah, no, I love a wee bit of Shaky. And I love the video for that as well, because I think it's sort of like there's Santa on a sleigh, all that sort of thing. So yeah, that's perfect for me.
For me, it's like I was trying to get into I was sort of getting into the Christmas spirit, which I have done for the past week or two. I think I was saying to Chris before we recorded about like playing Christmas music in the car, etc. Recently, I think I was going through traffic and I was like, this will cheer me up. But yeah, I was listening to some more on my way home tonight, and Merry Christmas Everybody came on. I was like, this is just such a banger. Like, I love that one, originally by like Slade, but even the covers of it are really great. And also The Darkness, like that's an excellent one. I know Craig would definitely agree there.
I absolutely love Don't Let the Bells End.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is a very good one as well.
Craig, any others that jump out to you?
Yeah, so mine's a bit more of a unconventional insofar as I don't see myself as like Christmas mainstream. I am fairly obsessed with The Wombats Is This Christmas, so it's like a more like sort of modern one. But it sort of like depicts my general Christmas experience, which is just lots of like power and frills, but underneath it is just a like, what am I actually doing with my life sort of message.
Well, everyone I'm sure can vibe with it, especially after the last few years, etc. But yeah, and fits in with what we were mentioning Wombats in the last episode with Anna and the Apocalypse of the musical vibe there as well. But yeah, Mary, now we've got the sort of Christmas stuff out of the way. Just to confirm, you aren't in an Italian busy square though, because I know you had quite the ordeal recently.
I knew you were going to out me for this. Yes, I had.
I'm sorry.
A stress stream, I think that's the appropriate way of putting it, where for some bizarre reason I was in a very busy Italian town square on the night we had to record this, and I couldn't hear you guys, and you were breaking up, and I just kept chiming in with what I thought was appropriate comments about the film. When I woke up, I'm not joking, like really sweating that something had gone wrong. So I'm glad that yes, I'm in my house and I can hear and see you.
Thank you. I felt I just had to bring it up just so, like, again, it's one of those firsts in which I was like, Craig, we've had somebody who's like dreamt that they were in the recording. Hopefully we haven't given you that many nightmares. I think it's more the reverse, like possibly your film choice gave Craig nightmares last time.
Well, I do believe I have ruined the word lovely for Craig, so I am going to apologise for that.
I mean, I'll be fair, I don't think it's necessarily you who needs to apologise, more Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, probably one in a long list of apologies he needs to make, in fairness.
Well, you're still on the podcast, Mary, so you
I know,
haven't lost
you invited
us, don't
me
worry.
back, I can't believe it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we talk about the films even if there are some bumps along the way. Usually those bumps aren't in the form of like bodies falling out of a potato pan.
One of the best scenes in the film.
Thank you again, Mary, for joining us. And like I said, hopefully this is going to be a better experience than that dream that you had. I think it's just the image of it. Like, I think we could all relate to that. Just like imagining being in this busy square and be like, especially after COVID, like all this kind of like, you know, can you hear me? Is my mic on? Am I coming through? That kind of stuff. It's a definite vibe. But yeah, we can't wait to talk all about some Christmas shorts and talk about Olive, the Other Reindeer. So I'll just go to each of you. I asked you two Christmas shorts that stood out to you, so TV, movies, short films, whichever you want to see them as. Chris, your choice was?
So I picked Robin, last year's Netflix Aardman special, which I just love. I've seen it twice, 5 stars on Letterboxd. I think it's great. I think it's probably actually one of my favourite. I'm a big fan of Aardman anyway, but one of my favourite things they've done in the last decade or so. Because I think they've been a bit patchy since probably 2010, 2011, and I think it's a good return to form for them.
And Mary, what was it you chose?
So I picked Angela's Christmas, which is also on Netflix. I don't know if it's just because I come from a really big Irish family that I found a lot of the humour really relatable. But yeah, I think this is a really there is a nice sweet message behind it, as much as there is a lot of chaos that goes on as well.
Yeah, so two that you can easily find on Netflix, and two very unique ones as well, because I guess I sort of expected more of the traditional kind of stuff, and I suppose Aardman was still there, even though I expected more like The Wrong Trousers or something like that. There was still this kind of like sweet, different kind of story with Angela's Christmas, even though I thought that something like The Snowman, etc. would come up. So yeah, I think it is a good variety of films that we got today, that we're, looking into, and I guess just talking overall about like Christmas shorts and those kind of TV movies that we watch at this time of year. So going back to Robin, Chris, you mentioned obviously how much you loved it, and it was a good return to form for Aardman. What else do you think makes it such a sort of standout for a Christmas special, or like even, I guess some people might say that something like Wallace and Gromit is like staple television. Would you say it's already kind of reached that level?
Might take a few years for it to reach, The Wrong Trousers or A Close Shave, but it's very heartwarming. It's got some great voice actors attached to it. So you've got Gillian Anderson as a cat, and Richard E. Grant as a magpie, and Adil Akhtar as the dad mouse. And just for anyone who doesn't know, it's a story of a robin who falls out of a nest and then is adopted by a mouse family and kind of tries to be a mouse. And so they kind of big figures sneaking in and out of people's houses. And this happens to be around Christmas. There's kind of lots of snow. And then they want to see all the staff on the top of the house's tree. So it's very fun. Kind of puts a nice spin on it. And I think it's Aardman's first musical as well.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that. I don't know if it was just the fact that it's on Netflix or the fact that it was Aardman, but yeah, I was kind of surprised to see songs suddenly coming out. But what I liked about it is that it was very kind of natural to the story. It wasn't like this big show number, this like where everything kind of stopped and there was disbelief and characters were coming out of nowhere. It kind of fit the vibe that they were going for in terms of that kind of storybook element and that kind of tale, and the character kind of just singing a song, but in a kind of narrative way of just sort of saying the lyrics, not sort of like belting them out, etc. Because I guess I kind of got like, there's so many of them, I can't mention them all, but the BBC animations they have each year, like the Gruffalo and all of those which come out every year with, what's that one, like the mouse and the banded mouse and all that kind of stuff. Every year there's like a different one on television.
The Highway Rat or something like that, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. So I kind of got like the vibes of those kind of like shorts and animated movies as well.
And I think they had two Christmas specials, because I think there was a Shaun the Sheep Christmas special last year as well. So they doubled up on the Christmas content last year.
And I'm always happy to see, like you said, the fact that Richard E. Grant is in this. Like he's just one of my favorite actors. He's just such a wonderful human being. If you follow him on Twitter, like he's both like heartbreaking some days when he's talking about like his wife who sadly passed away, but then just also like just having these like videos in which he's just grinning ear to ear and he's just so happy. He also has like one of the best moments in the Loki series, if you haven't seen him in that. He's fantastic in Can You Ever Forgive Me? So to hear him here as well, I didn't realize he was in it. I was like, and he's just perfect for that type of character, especially the way he's like, walking around with his wings and collecting all these items. His song was particularly, a highlight. Mary, what you checked out Robin before this? Had you seen it before?
Yes.
Or was this the first time?
I have seen it before because I feel like it's not Christmas if you haven't watched some form of Aardman. And I did obviously message you a good Scottish word. Robin has me greasing quite a lot. I feel it's very, for obviously non-Scottish listeners, that just means crying. I feel it's very emotional. I feel like you can really see all the wee lines of the felt, and I feel like you almost want to reach out and just touch his little fake mouse ears. And there's such a lovely, messaging behind it about, maybe not fitting in and maybe embracing what makes you different. And obviously that's perhaps me, adult me projecting onto a children's programme, but it's so well done without being really saccharine, which I think is obviously quite common in Christmas specials. And for me, one of the highlights was, Gillian Anderson. Everyone knows, anyone that has a cat knows that they are mean and fickle at the best of times, and her voice work here is incredible. I had such good fun watching this again.
She pretty much was cat Margaret Thatcher, essentially. She was like, I'm just going to do Margaret Thatcher as a cat.
But yeah, with some purse thrown in, that was literally it was brilliant though. It's such good fun, and as I say, I just feel like you can really feel the warmth from it, not just from the colouring and the fact that you look like you can feel the felt. There is a warmth about it. It's such a nice feeling watching it, I think.
And just the fact that also, we've talked recently about how great stop motion is with Nightmare Before Christmas, Paranorman. We talked about it earlier in the year as well with A Town Called Panic. So, I won't start raving about stop motion again, but, I think here the difference, obviously, it is like you were saying, that it's like felt and is a very much like a feeling to it. It's a very coziness to the film. I think the other day I saw that actually Fantastic Mr. Fox is like the highest rated sort of stop motion film on Letterboxd, which I thought was interesting. I guess it does make sense because Wes Anderson and Fantastic Fox is, especially for film lovers who probably are using that app the most, that film very much vibes with them. But it's similar to that in a way. It's that idea of like the fur moving and feeling that kind of like coziness and that kind of real feeling. And I think here with Robin as well, you have that element of where's the Lego movies and Spider-Verse, I suppose, to agree with it, kind of changing the frame rates, etc., to make it look more like stop motion. Here, it actually is stop motion, but I felt that even more so than something like Wallace and Gromit, there was more of that nice, like, stilted effect to it, like it was kind of, like little set pieces that were being done by a child or like a piece of art or something. I thought that gave it a really nice quality, in the sense that one of the bits that stood out to me, I think, is when one of the mouse children was really angry and they were like, huh, and like their like little arms were like coming up and they were like, I'm sick of tea, and he had like the Earl Grey bag, and it's just the way that they like so suddenly whip between each movement that is just really endearing.
It's genuinely really funny as well. I remember seeing it at a public screening at BFI last year's London Film Festival, and lots of kids in, and everyone was, and the cast came out as well, and everyone was just laughing throughout. So I think it's a family favourite for sure. A
nice coziness to it, some nice emotions. Mary said, and do you think the story as well takes you through those kind of like emotions?
Yeah, I think so. I think Christmas can be a challenging time. I know that obviously the Hallmark version of Christmas is family and it's friends and it's everyone around each other and there's that cozy glow. But I think if you feel like you don't fit in or you're, having a challenging time, Christmas can be rough, right? So I think that this is a really nice way of explaining that about, finding your strengths, leaning into what you're good at, and you don't have to be the same as everyone else, and you can sort of find or create your family. It's not necessarily what you were born into. So again, this is probably adultly projecting an awful lot onto a little felt bird, but I think that's the emotion that you get from it, and that's why it does feel so warm and a really important message. And obviously there is really funny stuff. I really love when Magpie learns to sneak and he's dancing inside a sock and it's just all chaos and there's so much noise going on. It's brilliant. But yeah, there is a really nice message at the heart of it that I think is something that you don't often hear at Christmas. Christmas is very much the Hallmark version of families, and I think this is a very nice alternative message.
Yeah, it's definitely a very important point to bring up because, that was something I was thinking recently as well, is I know that there's so many people who are like, oh, it's all about family. My cousins come from far away, blah, 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 but I have a very small family. So I've always just been used to just 2 or 3 people around me at Christmas. So I think that people forget that as well. Is just, as you said, it's what you make of the holiday and it's who you spend it with, whether it's just 2 people, 3 people, somebody's doing it through Zoom, etc. There can be lots of different ways of doing that, and it's nice that, especially a company like Aardman, which has done so much to kind of highlight charming kind of nice stories which can teach children and grown-ups. So on to Angela's Christmas then, Mary. So you said obviously part of it was personal for you in terms of why you chose it, but why would you say it's it's one that people should check out or a highlight?
Again, I think there's a really nice message blended with lots and lots of humour. Don't be put off by knowing that it's from Frank McCourt. Obviously, Angela's Ashes is very grim and it's not Christmas viewing, unless that's the type of thing that you like at Christmas. It's just a nice little story about, a little girl who wants to do right at Christmas. And I think that the setting really sort of adds to the story because there's obviously, a lot of poverty, a lot of kind of, big sort of working class Irish community, that sort of thing. But it ultimately is about a little girl getting into mischief. And I think Christmas in particular is the time when little kids do feel a little bit sort of more cheeky and maybe up to no good. And ultimately, it's a girl that sees a dolly and wants to help the dolly. So it's good fun. I think there's a lot of humour in there.
Yeah, I think it wasn't until I watched it, I was just like, oh, Angela's Ashes. I understand, because I was watching, I was like, this is like Angela's Ashes. And then I looked up, I was like, oh, it's the same writer. I was like, of course. It made a lot more sense then once I had seen that connection. And I think that quality comes through as well. Is Robin based on a book or anything, or is it? I don't think so, possibly. But whereas this, you can really feel, oh, it's adapted from a book. It's that very much that idea of it's being narrated, etc. There's that, period element to it, which seems very novel-esque.
I do find it a little bit weird that the film is narrated in a way which suggests that it's narrated from the perspective of the baby Jesus.
Is that what you got from that? I just thought it was a sort of omniscient narrator. I didn't realise it was supposed to be the baby Jesus.
He literally says turns out to be my mother. And because the way in which it's all framed.
Because Angela is Frank's mother from Angela's Ashes. So that's
So I haven't seen Angela's Ashes, so that's why the way in which the end, especially sort of the way in which it obviously zooms on the baby Jesus in the jumper, which obviously I knew was going to be coming, was still going to be a nice image, does make it sound like it's being narrated by the wooden baby Jesus. And I was like, wait, why is this happening?
That would be a choice.
I think that's why, because I messaged David when I was watching it, something along the lines of, there are elements of this that feel psychotic. That's what was sort of got me on board of that. And now that makes a lot more sense. It's like, oh, right, okay. Sure.
I'm also glad that you felt familiar enough that, given my last choice of film, you thought elements of psychotic. Yeah, this is definitely one that May's picked. She's comfortable with. This feels like her kind of Christmas movie.
Yeah, I mean, this is a degree to which, I understand the perspective of seeing a doll and just wanting to help the doll. The way they make her look when she does it, it makes it just look like a hypnotic effect. Just the intense staring, and I'm like, it's a doll.
I just really liked it because I thought it was just really, really funny in the sense that, she does take this baby Jesus doll to a pub and she's showing it around and she says, what is it? We're going to wrap you up like a little holy sausage, and then launches him over a garden wall, and you just sort of see this wooden baby Jesus floating through the air and coming back down. There was so much of it really, really made me laugh. But then I also thought there was lots of elements of it that were, again, quite pertinent. She walks into church and she you can see the sort of maybe shame that she feels of her own poverty because she notices the girl in the nice coat with the nice baby doll. And yeah, again, there's elements of it that are really, really funny, but also kind of maybe sort of messaging behind it about how difficult this time of year can be for families, I guess.
Yeah, especially the actual flashback scene to her birth and the entire story behind that, and the idea of just wanting a warm place. It is quite tragic.
Yeah, there's definitely, it's almost sort of Les Miserables style of, stealing the coal just to keep the family warm and to bring a baby into a warm house. But I think it balances both quite nicely. I think I was just in a sort of Banshees of Inisherin thing where I was like, oh, Irish humour's the best. Let's watch Angela's Christmas. So I think that's where it's at. It does balance that really nice melancholy with, lots of fun.
Yeah, and I think that's important to highlight, is the fact that it's not always doom and gloom. Is, you can have those stories which are like, oh, this is so like depressing and stuff, but people who are in those dark situations can have that sense of humor to try and get them through those situations, or just they don't know anything else bar that, and those characters can still be relatable and enjoyable. They don't have to be defined by that one element, like, oh, she's poor, like that's her character, she is poor. It's like, which again makes sense why it comes from the author of Angela's Ashes, because again it's talking from like more personal experiences, etc. But yeah, I found that element funny, the fact that the way they were referring to the baby Jesus, like she's like, oh, Angela's got baby Jesus in her bedroom, and then the fact that the mother's just like, oh, Jesus. I was just like, touche, thank you film for doing that joke.
It was very good, and I particularly appreciated the two old people who are in the church that think the baby Jesus has sneezed and then blessed them, and they're arguing outside as to who the baby Jesus was actually blessing. That really did make me chuckle as well.
I thought that was actually where the film was going. I was like, is this what the storyline's going to be? That like these people are going to be convinced that the Jesus has come alive or something like that? That like it was going to be a whole like the girl tricking the church or the town or something, but no. But yeah, I also liked when she threw it over the wall and she was just like, what are you doing, baby Jesus? That's no way to do this. It's just, yeah, it was a typical kind of like child's reaction, and the way they interacted with it was great. And I think even for, I don't know, like the budget of it, etc., but I think that it does show again what you can do with, a more basic animation. I think that's the only thing I think that kind of like holds it back, and is unfortunate that, like you said, Mary, that they've got those like strong themes of like showing, poverty and, her like seeing other children, and then the humor with, the baby Jesus stuff. I was kind of like watching it thinking like, oh, if only they were able to present this in just like a non kind of like, oh, just 3D Disney looking animation. I was kind of thinking like,
it is quite basic, especially when I watched Robin and Angela's Christmas back to back, and then I watched Robin first, and obviously it's obviously completely different styles of animation, but it did make me feel like Angela's Christmas, having watched it again, seems almost a bit flat and just a bit basic, but it's still entertaining enough.
Yeah, and I think even whether it's just because of like the Irish connection, I think you think of like Cartoons Saloon, where you think like, even though again it might be unfair to say like, oh well, they can do it, why can't you? I think it's just that element of just, if you want to get across certain themes or stories, then that can be done really effectively. You can buy into it more when it is a different form of animation or something which is a bit more unique. Whereas when it is just like, oh, this looks the same as every other 3D animation, it's a bit harder to buy into some of those ideas or themes, I think, as much. But that's, I think, where the strength of it is, through the voice cast, the writing, the music, which sort of sell that a lot more. Now we'll go on to Olive, the Other Reindeer, which is our main film this week, which is, such a choice, such an interesting one. As I said earlier, this was from 1999. So yeah, TV movie, really weird just to start off to see something as well, which had the like 20th Century Fox logo at the end, like the television one, and it had the same like production company with like the droplets, which is in things like Futurama, etc. And yeah, this has a very unique style of animation. It's this kind of like 2D, 3D-ish, like hybrid, very of the time. As I said earlier, quite a big sort of like voice cast in it. And yeah, there's obviously questions as to whether it qualifies as a film as well, which we were discussing. So where should we start? So Chris, what was your reaction when I suggested this, and what was your first reaction to the film?
When I was watching it, I was like, what is this? Because he said the animation is so unlike anything you get now. It feels and the whole tone and the humor and some of the casting feels very of its time. Like Michael Stipe, obviously the singer from REM, and he gets to do a song as well. So I was like, well, that's obviously, if people watching it now, they might be like, what's this? And Joe, I'm going to butcher his surname, apologies, Pantoliano, from like The Sopranos and Memento as well. Again, was a big name at the time. And it was just, I don't know, I can't tell if I liked it or not because I was enjoying it enough, but I was like, this is just so odd, and it feels quite adult as well, in terms of the humor. I'm not sure what the target demographic for it was at the time, because it's like Round John Virgin, is he the bartender owner, like it's obviously quite an adult joke, but yeah, it was interesting. I'll say that.
It's definitely of, like you said, if it vibes with the kind of, Mac Groening, The Simpsons, Futurama kind of stuff. But as you said, then it's also this cuddly Christmas film, and you're just like, who is this for? Especially the fact that, like, Laura, I think, watched it at a young age, and she had the DVD, and even the DVD is kind of sold as like this kind of, kids' Christmas film that you buy, on the shelf at Tesco, etc. And I think I vaguely remember maybe seeing it and thinking, what is this? And it kind of reminds me of like when you see those films, in bargain bins, etc., which are just like man in the air of balloons, and it's like, this like knockoff film of like Up or something like that. And when you get those kind of weird knockoffs essentially, but this was something completely original. It wasn't just kind of like going, oh, like, Rudolph's cousin or something, like, Johnny the reindeer or anything like that. It first appears like that when you just hear the name, but when you actually watch it, you're like, oh no, there's actually some decent jokes in here. There's some decent writing. But as you said, Chris, it was like, but who is it for? I don't know. And I think even the fact that, it's like Drew Barrymore, I was just like, I can understand maybe even everyone else, like Dan Castellaneta, coming on board because the connections through animation. But why did Drew Barrymore feel like, this is the film I need to do?
I also felt her performance for me just sold what I thought it was, which was just, to me, it felt insanely preschool. And because like she had a way of performing, her protagonist was just, everything was so overly sort of positive and like go get 'em attitude. And I was just like, this isn't Dora the Explorer. Can you just tone it down a bit and actually have character? Not just be like, I'm going to the North Pole. I'm going to do this. It's like, dude, please. Even like when she thought that the owner was like going to abandon her and get another dog, she was just like, oh no, what am I going to do? It's just like, come on.
Yeah, it did come across as that kind of like very Dora Barney kind of like approach to it in that sense. And again, that's where it's confusing as to who this film is made for. And I think there's like allusions to where you feel this film is going to go, like when she's singing at the beginning and like the mail truck like comes up like right up to it, the way it was like building up to that, I was like, oh, is this the kind of like, oh, you think it's a happy story and then suddenly she gets hit by a van or something? It's almost like they were building up to these dark jokes or something, and then they never happen, and you're like, oh, okay, so what is this meant to be? But yeah, it's such a strange one, and the look of it and the animation style. Mary, what was your reaction?
I still don't know if I was on not enough medication or too much, because it was like, when you go back and you look at like a really, really old PlayStation game or something, and then you're just, I feel like there's that kind of thing. It's like swimming around in your peripheral vision. Obviously things look strange at odd angles, and certainly you were getting that with the faces here, because they were sort of shaped like the letter E and everything was just really weird. I don't know who this was for. Like, it's almost not like, because I always think of like, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I watched that as a little girl and loved it because it was big and it was colourful. Then watched it as an adult and went, oh, this is really inappropriate for children. And I guess there's an element of that. But at the same time, as an adult watching that, I won't lie, I wanted terrible things to happen to Olive, because her peppiness, or whatever you want to call it, was grating on my nerves after about 10-15 minutes.
So you wanted the van to go full pelt, as
sure,
I was possibly
like,
expecting.
The gas dude, do us all a favour.
I honestly thought there was going to be a moment where she does plummet out of the sky. And my genuine question is, like, I will accept the logic of get those like cardboard wings and flap. I will accept that as logic for why the dog can fly. What I won't accept is, how does the dog start flying with like the running? What happens? Like, you have to have some rules here, guys. Come, please just give me something.
Yeah, because before that I was like, how is this happening? Is there magic? I didn't quite understand, but
they never explain it. It's just struggling, and then eventually it's just like, oh look, it's happening. It's like,
okay.
I think she was powered by sheer optimism.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, is there some message of like, you could do anything if you believe in it? And I was like, well, where was that for this entire film? On that idea of like, oh, you want bad things to happen or like darker avenues to go down. I had a similar reaction with the letters the Santa had, like when he was like, oh, kids just aren't interested these days, and when he was just like, look at this one, it's just like, I hate you, Santa, and all this. And I thought that I didn't make the connection yet that was the mailman, and I was like, oh wow, what a great commentary on like modern children and society. Wouldn't that be great? And the fact that one of them was just like, you're fat and overweight and you're an old man, and I was like, when he was like, that wasn't from the children, that was from the mailman, and I was like, I kind of want it to be from the children. Is that weird to actually be like, no, there's a defined naughty and nice list, you know?
I agree with you. I think it would be great if there was if there was genuinely some attitude of people just being, well, not even just like overly mean like that, but just sort of entitled. What I'm more surprised of, David, is you didn't know that those letters were fake like the moment you saw them.
It's not as if the mailman wasn't set up to be like a snarling villain from the Oz.
I know.
It was very clear. It was just like, I hate Christmas because of how much work it gives me. Although I will say, for somebody who hates work, puts in an awful lot of effort to try to stop more work for himself.
I just love his commitment to be like, this dog is trying to save Christmas and like replace a reindeer by being the replacement flying reindeer. I must stop this dog. Not being like, why don't you like put this effort into just stopping Santa?
Yeah, just get a bazooka, wait it out, and just take him out. Because all you're doing, mate, is stopping Christmas from happening this year. Think big. Go like ambitious with your plans.
We did say in the Nightmare Before Christmas episode, I was amazed at the jump that they make when they're suddenly like, right, get the cannons, gun down, you know, Jack Skellington out of the sky. It was like that could have happened to you just as easily, I guess. But yeah, there's just so many strange moments, like the pet flea, and again, there's mixes of like, oh, okay, that's like a decent joke. Like there was the bit where she was like, oh, I'm just switching between the radio stations, and then they're like, oh, what's this? She was like, oh, this is the high pitch station for dogs, and I was like, that's a decent joke, that's quite funny, but again, it just was randomly thrown in there, kind of thing. But why the flea was kind of like, oh, I need to make you think that your owner hates you. So when he was there outside the door and was just like, let's have a lovely Christmas, he's saying, and he was just there like, he's saying he never wants to see you again and he's going to get another dog. And I was just like, where is this coming from? Why is this like hatred of this man? But also this kind of like, yeah, this is what I want you to do. And I'm going to like go about it in like a bad way and like never really felt the repercussions of it.
But I also just thought there was quite a disconnect between like, obviously that was maybe meant to be like a bad lip reading joke. And either, again, like I said, wasn't sure if it was too much meds or not enough, but I felt like I didn't really understand the leap from, okay, well, if my owner's going to get rid of me, I'm going to become the other reindeer and save Christmas because then he'll never get rid of me. I didn't really get that either. Was that explained? Did I miss it?
Yeah, it's about as much explanation that he's ever sort of suggested.
You know, I'll give it to them, like the, you know, all of the other reindeer, like to Olive the reindeer. I was like, that's quite clever just in his concept. I don't know if that was the initial pitch, like we need to run with this and make an entire TV special out of it. But I was like, you know, I think that quite worked. But again, the story should have been maybe more interesting in that, you know, they get there and there's that kind of realization of like, oh no, you completely misheard this, and like crash to earth kind of moment of like, you cannot fly, you cannot do this. Not just like, oh, sorry, you misheard that. Okay, well, let's just go with it anyway. I guess the like book element comes, you know, in the fact that it does look kind of like a storybook brought to life. The look of it, I thought, was interesting. And like I said, it is a bit dated now. And it reminds me of, again, those kind of like videos, DVDs you would have as a child. And there'd be like different, you know, forms of animation used to try and tell these kind of like kids' stories in budget, you know, like low budget ways, or, you know, different kind of ways, or trying to be like something, being like, oh, we'll try and mimic the Magic Roundabout, or try and mimic this, you know, this famous animation or like Disney film, etc. But here I was like, I don't even know what you're trying to mimic. I think you're just trying to be original or different. Maybe the Simpsons approach of being like, it looks so kind of ugly that it'll be attractive. But and maybe in that time of like 3D animation was becoming bigger, there was a bit more experimentation going on. But it was interesting you brought up, Mary, like PlayStation, because I was like, yeah, in one way, it feels like a game cutscene, like when you have characters which are just like rigidly there, like you must do this and then you must go there. And it's this strange, like, interactions of characters with speech bubbles. So you could almost imagine yourself running around as Olive and speaking to these different characters. But it reminded me of like when I was young, when like PCs were becoming like a bigger thing, which makes me like sound really old, but when it was like that, the family computer, and you would have like a big pack of games, like say there would be like 90 games on one disc or something. And on one I had, it had like an Art Attack, like movie cartoon maker thing. And it would be like little move-in people and like little astronauts and stuff. And you could make like a little short like animation with these little like moving characters and backgrounds and stuff. And there was a few things like that, like in that kind of era, that 1999, 2000s era of being like, hey, you know, movie making for kids, like the Lego movie makers and things like that. It seems to be of that era in which they're like trying to find accessible, fun ways for kids to use computers and put together little animations and stuff like that. That's what it reminded me of.
To be honest, it felt like at times, it felt like I was watching a friend's submission for like an animation degree sort of like showcase, and it felt like I just needed to pull him aside at times to be like, you sure you're gonna pass your degree, mate? Like, you can be a bit more ambitious with this, because I think the art style is interesting apart from the fact that it just absorbs a lot of characters from like their ability to emote, like the eyes on Olive especially just being sort of like just so they're just dots, right? Like, no eyebrows, just dots. Just cannot emote for anything. It's just odd. It's just really odd.
I don't know if that's like what you're saying about the lack of emoting, sort of, you know, from the eyes or whatever. I don't know if that's where the vocal performance then comes from, because it feels really like static. It's just, it doesn't deviate from this like super earnest, super over the top, and maybe that's kind of what they were going for. But it's just so grating. And I don't know if that's just because obviously I'm a dear Scotsman, but I think that level of positivity was very much wearing me down.
I guess that's why The Mailman in some ways is one of the most entertaining ones, because I felt like the animation kind of suited him the most, in which he was kind of like his mouth with the way he was like flapping around, and when they would attack him and stuff, you know, the way he would go like, and all this kind of stuff, it kind of fitted. And even his song, I kind of found like quite funny, you know, the fact that he would be like bar, bug and hum. I was just like, okay, it's different, you know, it's just the way he was saying it. And I guess that Dan Castellaneta is able to sell that performance a lot more. And I felt that his movements and his character really came through a lot more than any other character, really.
See, I just heard him and I was just like, all I can hear is Robot Devil from Futurama. That's literally all I could hear.
I was just going to say the animation for the Postman reminds me a bit of the Pink Panther cartoons, a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think the tone for the characters is so kind of, Olive's obviously this kind of overly pessimistic, optimistic person, and then the Mafia, is that his name? The penguin was like
Martini, his name.
Martini, that was it. Along the right lines.
I'd love it if his name was Mafia. That would be such an interesting take.
Yeah, Martini, he reminded me of, and I know it's before this, but the penguins from Madagascar, obviously. Yeah, and I was like, is that an influence on them in some way? I don't know. Because
I said about online games, maybe his Club Penguin.
Oh, yeah. So I've enjoyed Martini because I like Joe Pantoliano, you know, and I was like, straight away, is the guy from Memento and The Sopranos and that kind of stuff. So he kind of fitted what he was going for. But again, it just felt like he was in a different project to everyone else in terms of like the brand of humor and storyline and things like that.
And obviously Edward Asner has been in a lot of things, you know, television, films, etc. And it's not their fault that he was then, you know, Carl Fredrickson in Up, but it was extremely distracting watching it after seeing Up, being like, oh, that's not Santa, that's Carl Fredrickson, you know, which is, you know, such an endearing old character. And I guess it goes back to then what we were saying about like embracing the cynical stuff. I was just like, I want him to be like grumpy Santa, like he is in Up, you know, the kind of like, go away, I don't want you to be involved kind of aspect. But yeah, definitely an interesting one with Olive the Reindeer. And yeah, and it was funny as well, because I think even Laura said like, oh, my parents hated this film when I would put it on. They really disliked it, and I'm the only person who like liked it, etc. So yeah, it's definitely a vibe in which people like are very polarized on their opinions about it, and it's definitely a unique one, and has such a mix of, yeah, as you said, good jokes, good, you know, voice actors and stuff, but just such a strange story and such a, yeah, sickening optimism sometimes.
This is a direct message that goes out to Laura's parents. I'm sorry, and I feel for you. Okay, so take those cassettes, rewind them, and play them again, because it's VHS Corner. So there's not a lot of behind the scenes about this film for reasons I couldn't fathom to tell you. Maybe it's because, you know, it's not a film, so not many people give a damn to sort of research this. However, there are a few things. Mostly these are sort of Easter eggs that are posted throughout the film that I think is probably good to sort of point out. So here are a couple of the things that I was able to find. So at the bus depot, the destinations for all the places the other buses would be going were all sacred religious cities or sites. So arrivals were Bethlehem, the Ganges River, Jerusalem, and departures was Mecca, Salt Lake City, and Los Angeles. So obviously they all have a corresponding religion assigned to them. So it's also nice that this film was happy to recognize Mormons as well, before, you know, Book of Mormon really made them a thing to put them on the map. So obviously Dan Castellaneta being in this film, being heavily related to Matt Groening, because obviously working on The Simpsons. So there is actually a Simpsons Easter egg in this movie. So in the scene where you see, like, I think during one of the songs you see a load of falling letters, they are all addressed to Bart Simpson. A couple of other popular pop culture characters appear in this film, believe it or not. In the diner during the bus layover, you could briefly but clearly see Captain Kirk, Dr. McCoy, Spock, and Scotty from Star Trek all sitting in a table in the upper hand left of the shot. So this film is taking us into some bold places. Some would say a new frontier. The final thing then to generally talk about is still talking about Dan Castellaneta's Postman. So couple of extra things of him, specifically the style of performance that Castellaneta went for with regards to the Postman specifically was trying to mimic Vincent Price, which I think is fair, but like I said, for me, it's just he just did his performance from Robot Devil again for this role, which makes sense considering that there's also a sort of theological link in this film, because everyone will have noticed in the scene where Olive is locked up in the van, there is a gift to her delivered by Deus Ex Machina. Obviously, we're all filmies, we all know what that term means, but for those of you at home that don't, Deus Ex Machina is very much device from God, or basically like a plot convenience that basically just allows something to happen. So the fact that the film was very much willing to do this, specifically the Latin is God out of the machine, which basically I think is actually quite a clever nod to the ways in which story contrivances, especially in something like this, tend to happen in the first place. Whether or not that's enough for me to sort of come round to this film and fully respect, I don't know, but that's everything that I was able to find out about Olive the Other Reindeer.
I guess unsurprising, like lots of Easter eggs in there, and a lot of trivia to do with the creatives, which, you know, are quite high profile. I'm not surprised too much about the Vincent Price aspect, because my mind didn't actually go to the Robot Devil straight away. My mind went to, oh, which Simpson character voice is this that I've heard this before? And I knew it was a kind of weird niche one. And I think it's when Vincent Price is in like one of the Simpson jokes and it's Dan Castellaneta doing that kind of over-the-top voice. So possibly that's where I had heard it before.
There's so much going on, and none of it actually seems like it's all combining to make one film. There's just a random, and even that I didn't obviously catch the Spock and all that sit in the cafeteria. Like, why is that there?
They do quite often like to reference Star Trek with, like, I remember in The Simpsons, and they were like, so very tired, you know, that one where they're like sort of commenting on the age of the Star Trek actors. And I think even at that time, you're like, what a weird niche kind of joke reference to make. So, and of course, Futurama very much like paying tribute to Star Trek. So yeah, I think it's often kind of like we find this funny because we're Trekkies, but it doesn't kind of then come across to everyone else.
Especially if it's so hard to spot as well. I didn't notice that.
It's such an odd choice, especially considering that like everyone else in the world is, I can't really say grounded, because obviously there are things like we're here, there's loads of news crews outside the North Pole where Santa himself is going to give a press conference. But it's very much they're at least grounded on Earth. There's no one is like sort of interstellar levels. So I'm just unsure why like these guys are just randomly rocking up for like a random diner in the middle of like what? The just frozen land? Just why?
Some interesting trivia there and a very interesting film. We've talked about Olive, the Other Reindeer, Robin, and Angela's Christmas. So now we will undertake our usual task of deciding what film deserves a place, if any of them, in our movie vault. Our vault that encapsulates good, bad, and mediocre films for all time. So for new listeners and guests, we like to think of this as a time capsule of memorable movies for someone to find in the future. So should any of our chosen short films today gain the honor of a place in our movie vault and be remembered for all time? Chris, you're new here, so I'll go to you first. But obviously you and Mary might be biased in terms of what choices, but in terms of all three films, you know, one I know you haven't seen, but what do you think?
I'd definitely pick Robin of the two I've seen. I didn't even necessarily dislike all of the other reindeer. I just think it was the tonal kind of, it was so all over the place. I was like, this is a bit of a wild experience, whereas Robin is kind of so earnest and sweet, and I think people can go back to it more readily every Christmas. Hopefully, and you know, with access on Netflix, hopefully it will become sort of a family favorite, you know. And so I think there's definitely rewatchability value there as well. And I think the animation's good enough to hold up in the future. If someone discovered it 10 years, 20 years down the line, I think it would still look impressive, as all Aardman stuff does.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the idea that all of the other reindeer, even if it's just okay, or like, yeah, it was fine, but it's just not even anything, like we said, where we kind of wanted it to push the boundaries or go different or go bold. It just kind of ended as a normal, generic kind of Christmas special, which isn't even connected to anything else, which kind of lets it down. Mary, what's your thoughts?
I would happily put Robin in the vault. I absolutely love it. That's me watched it a couple of times now, and I'll probably watch it again before Christmas. I think you're right. It's got lots of rewatchability value. The messaging's great. The stop motion's fantastic. And it's just a really sweet and cozy film. The exact type of film that you want for Christmas.
And Craig, what do you think of Olive, the Other Reindeer, potentially going in?
I mean, oh, definitely it's not going in. I mean, I'm trying to weigh up in my head whether I go for the really snobby opinion and be like, you know what, I don't think any of these should go in, insofar as I think these are like a different classification, because at the point where we don't have any like TV or anything like that specifically in the vault, if I recall correctly.
I get you got things like, you know, Mask of the Phantasm, which, you know, did release theatrically,
which was released in cinemas.
Yes, I know, but I'm just saying it's, you know, seen as a kind of TV movie in some ways. But
well, no, that's people being wrong. Yeah, I haven't decided to what extent I want to be that snob. All I can say is like Olive the Other Reindeer was, ironically, in such a cold film, was a fever dream. So I definitely couldn't say whether that could go in.
We did have Charlie Chaplin shorts go in, if that helps. Definitely not TV movies.
Yeah, but that was like silent movie era, though. That's like, that was a different landscape.
I think out of them, the Robin like comes across most as a short film, not just like, oh, a TV movie or something like that. And I think the only thing that lets like Angela's Christmas down is one, you know, it, I guess, is the kind of like affiliation to the kind of more famous story. But also, as we said, it's just unfortunate that the animation can be more different, even though it's a kind of like really sweet or like important tale. I think the Robin strikes that balance, as we said, is the fact that there's good emotional beats there. There's the strong visuals and animation style. And as Chris said, it's, you know, something that hopefully could continue to sort of like impress people and become a, you know, a firm favorite for families. I think the fact that it comes across as a standalone short film as many Christmas films do. Like, I think like The Snowman, for me, I wouldn't say that that's like a TV movie. I think that is like a short. Yeah, I guess out of the three, in goes Robin into our movie vault then.
We're in the end game now.
Okay, endgame time. Just to quickly check, how are you guys with Christmas puns?
I'm going to lose this anyway, so just go for it.
Okay, interesting. So this is a game that I've simply called Christmas Punsins. I couldn't think of a better one, so screw it. Basically, there are a number of different films, including this one, that basically derive their name from some form of Christmas or holiday-related pun. So what I'm going to do, I will say up front, a lot of these, I can't say all of them, but pretty much all of them are in some way like Hallmark Christmas films, because those monsters pump out like 20 odd a year. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read you a very brief synopsis of each of these films, and I want you to try and guess what you think the title of the movie is. Like I said, all of them in some way have some Christmas or holiday related pun. Is everyone clear on the rules?
My body is ready.
Cool. What I'll do is I'll have you send them to me privately on Zoom, so you basically have the chance to score a point each. But before we do that, we need to know what it is that we'll be playing for. So, because we'll be going into a string of special episodes, including the Endgame special, but also just sort of the like beginning of year, end of year, whatever you want to look at it, sort of special. This will not be playing for the opportunity to choose the film for our next episode. Instead, what you'll be doing is playing for the opportunity to choose a film that goes into our sort of wild card collection that could be used at some point, probably during one of the specials. So we should have an idea of what it is that we could have going in there. So this doesn't have to be a Christmas film. It could basically be any film, but we should probably have a hear of what it is you'd like to put forward. So, Mary, give us a little tease. Tell us a little bit about the film that you would like to suggest.
On the surface, this is a film that's about insurance, which makes it sound very boring. But this is a film from the early 40s, 1944, I believe, directed by one of the biggest directors of that era. And it has two lead actors who are very much playing against type.
Interesting. Thankfully, I think you're pitching this to the right audience, because I tend to be one of the people that I will happily watch a film about something that's perceived to be boring, because I think there's actually a lot of depth to it. All right, fantastic. Chris, tell us a little bit about what you'd like to put forward.
So mine is a heist film from the mid-90s from one of the most celebrated directors working today. It's his debut film, and I think it's flown under the radar. So not a lot of people would know this film from this director. I believe it became better known later, and it stars some actors who are very associated with this director, and some of the score and soundtrack is very associated with him as well. And it's one of Scorsese's top 10 favourite films of the 90s.
Okay, you know what I just said about Mary's film about pitching this to the right audience? I think we now need to scrap that, because I think you literally said the words that will win me over instantly. This is a heist film. So, David, you can confirm this, yeah, that how much I love the heist film.
Yeah, as soon as you said that, I was just like, oh, these are like, but I was thinking more the line of like, there's two, Craig is, happy with both choices. But yeah, as soon as I heard that, like when I watched the Rick and Morty heist episode, I was immediately like, Craig, you need to watch this episode.
Yeah.
I should qualify it's not like one heist, it's kind of like several small ones. Within.
Again, you're so, there's only so much I can take here. Like I was going to make the Archer quote, but I thought David would not appreciate the censorship for that. So, there's 7 in total, so there's a chance for both of you to earn 7 points. David, are you ready to keep score?
Yes.
Okay. So, plot number 1. While spending Christmas time with her mother in Switzerland, an architect meets a single father who shows her how to open herself up to love and forgiveness during the holiday season. So I'll read that again. While spending Christmas time with her mother in Switzerland, an architect meets a single father who shows her how to open herself up to love and forgiveness during the holiday season.
No idea on this. I'll have some fun guesses.
Okay, we have 2 suggestions from Mary so far.
Both of which are terrible.
Okay, I mean, I will make you choose which one you actually want to submit as your official answer.
I'll go for the second one because I think it's funnier, but I know
Okay.
it's not right.
Okay, so let's start with Mary then. What have you gone for?
A Star is Born. Oh yeah, because it's set in Switzerland.
And Chris, what did you go for?
I went for Falling for Christmas, that new Lindsay Lohan film, but I've kind of got the wrong gist of it slightly, I think.
Okay.
So
we'll start with Chris. Is it Falling for Christmas? It is unfortunately not. So, is it A Star is Born? What's really frustrating is Mary's identified that the pun is going to be because it's set in Switzerland. David, do you have an idea of what the film might be?
Is this like near to our mascot's name?
Kind of, yeah.
So something to do with Swiss Lodge.
Well, Swiss.
Okay, right. But no, about that.
The film is Merry Swissmas.
Oh, God.
Oh, it's so
Wow.
obvious.
Yeah.
So annoying.
Everyone was kind of like, oh, architect. And like, it's just like, no, it was just that basic. Wow.
Yeah. It was literally just Merry Swissmas.
Terrible.
Okay. So, plot number 2. To prove her app for busy professionals to find dates to important events without romantic commitment is a success, inventor Molly Hoffman jointed herself around the Christmas season, only to be matched with a disastrous past date. So it's to prove that her app for busy professionals to find dates to important events without romantic commitment is a success. Inventor Molly Hoffman joins it herself around the Christmas season, only to be matched with a disastrous past date.
For some reason, I have the Tinder swindler in my head.
Okay, we'll start with Mary again.
So I went for Ghosts of Christmas Past.
Ghosts of Christmas Past. Okay, Chris.
Mingle All the Way I've gone for.
Okay. Just checking, are both of these guesses from you, or do either of you have knowledge of this film potentially existing? Well, it does exist, but what it could be.
I think I've vaguely heard of this film, and so I thought it fitted the bill.
Okay, so we'll start with, is it Ghosts of Christmas Past? Is it Mingle All the Way? It is Mingle All the Way.
Oh. Well done.
Yeah, so that's why when trying to read through it again, I try to really emphasize it's like this connection app thing.
Yeah, I initially thought Holiday, and then I thought, no, it doesn't quite fit. So I've been reading about Christmas films this year, and this was one I read about, and so it.
Okay. There's a very good chance that more films that you've directly read about might be coming up, so this could be interesting.
Think of the puns.
Number 3. While vying for the same window decorating job at a popular department store during the holiday season, the serious Sloane Van Doren and easygoing Jake Dooley begin to realize they are not so different from each other after all. So that's, while vying for the same window decorating job at a popular department store during the holiday season, serious Sloane Van Doren and easygoing Jake Dooley begin to realize they are not so different from each other after all.
So sorry.
I mean, there's a possibility I like these titles more than the actual title it is, so don't apologize. Okay, we'll start with Chris this time.
I'm for Silent Fight.
Okay.
Partially just because I like the rhyme, but also kind of thought it fits with, there's a battle going on for the position.
Okay.
Probably wrong though.
No, it's an interesting perspective. It could be right. Mary's gone for a slightly different one. So what have you gone for?
So bad. In brackets, window dressing for love, because they're window dressers, no?
I was thinking something like down the lines of window dressing, to be fair. So I was like, what could we have with that?
So let's go through the answers. Is it Silent Fight? Is it window dressing for love? However, the correct answer is Window Wonderland. So it is about windows. So I'm going to award Mary with half a point because at least identified window.
I would take your pity. Thank you.
I want Window Dressing for Love to be a song. Like, that sounds like a number one right there.
Number 4. Fed up with being single on holidays, two strangers agree to be each other's platonic plus ones all year long, only to catch real feelings along the way. So that's fed up with being single on holidays. Two strangers agree to be each other's platonic plus ones all year long, only to catch real feelings along the way. So we have one. Oh no, we have both answers in. So we'll start with Chris again.
Yeah, I went for Holiday because I haven't seen it, but this fits what that is about.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier as well, so the name's already sort of in your head, presumably. Mary, what did you go for?
Single all the way. So
good.
sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, I think it's a very.
I think it's a very good
pun.
Be, like unapologetic about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you have to just go for it. I mean, lots of these people are. So, I mean, I really like the name "Single All the Way." It's wrong, but I do really like it as a title. Is it Holidays? It is Holidays. So when you said it earlier, I looked at my list and I was like, oh God, if he's seen the same list that I have, then this is going to be a short game.
I haven't seen it though, but I might add it to the list. I don't know.
Look, I'm not going to recommend any of these I mean, there's one name that's coming up which is like really, really painful. Is it number 5? We will see. So next up we have Dylan Neal stars as Henry Ross, a San Francisco culinary expert who, once again, teams up with Detective Maggie Price to investigate a death within a feuding wealthy family. So that's Dylan Neal stars as Henry Ross, a San Francisco culinary expert who, once again, teams up with Detective Maggie Price to investigate a death within a feuding wealthy family.
There's a lot going on in that film.
It doesn't sound very
and yet
Christmassy.
Still supposedly Christmas.
It isn't a Christmas pun, I've just realised. It's just words. Nah, do you know what? I'll leave it as is. I'm losing confidently.
Okay. So I think this is an interesting round. I think you'll see what I mean when we reveal the answers. So let's start with Mary. What's your title?
So not Christmassy. I've gone for A Recipe for Murder because he's a culinary expert. They're investigating a death. Best I can do.
Okay, and then Chris, what have you gone for?
I was trying to think of a food-related pun. I've just put Christmas dinner.
So interesting. So in a round where we were looking for Christmas puns, one of you has given us a non-Christmas and the other one's given a non-pun. Unfortunately, you are both incorrect. The exact name of the film is Eat, Drink, and Be Buried.
Wow.
Lord. Oh my Lord.
Specifically, it's Eat, Drink, and Be Buried, a gourmet detective mystery.
That certainly does cover...
I'm intrigued.
That does cover all the elements we were discussing. I was like, what culinary expert in a murder with a wealthy family?
Yeah. Literally, it's a series of 7 films that there are like various different mysteries. All of them have this Detective Maggie Price. This is the second one with the culinary expert Henry Ross.
Well, Mary knows.
I actually had to remove the words once again.
Mary and Chris know what they're doing this Christmas. 7-film marathon.
He's honestly going to be so excited. Forget Die Hard,
right.
Forget all the classics. We're going in 7 Hallmark films.
Yeah, the various different detective mysteries. All right, next up. A woman builds a snowman and a little Christmas magic brings her frozen creation to life. She is a true romantic, finally getting her chance at the storybook romance she's always dreamed of. Okay, we'll start with Chris.
There's a few puns I was thinking of, like the Snow Prince or something like that.
Okay, so you've gone for the Snow Prince. Mary?
It's no better time for romance.
So, is it the Snow Prince? Is it Snow Better Time for Romance? Again, Mary, you're going to get, like, some points off me because the actual name of the film is Snowmance.
Okay.
Oh, why did I put in all those extra words?
So you literally have the word snow and romance in your answer. So I am going to give you another half point, but you just added too much for me to be like, yeah, you're exactly right. So yeah, the film is literally just called Snowmance.
That's so silly.
I know. So this is our final question. A corporate workaholic wakes up in an alternative universe, married to her childhood sweetheart, and is confused about this. Presumably, this film takes place over Christmas. Because the synopsis never says this, but all the marketing material implies it. So I just want to make it very clear this is still like a Christmas-based film. Okay, we will my apologies, I'm usually more professional than this. We'll start with Chris.
Falling for Snow One.
Falling for Snow One. An excellent Christmas pun. Mary, what have you gone for?
So I kind of really struggled on the pun front, so I just went, this woman is clearly burnt out and needs therapy, miss.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, is it Falling for Snow One? Is it this woman is clearly burnt out and needs therapy, miss?
Sure.
The answer is Holidays.
Oh, what?
Yeah, as in dazed and confused.
Terrible. So lazy.
Yeah.
The days got like that. It was good.
Yeah. So that comes to the end. So David, talk us through the final scores.
So getting the 2 half points meant that Mary had 1 point, but Chris came out on top with 2. Hey.
Congratulations, Chris. So at this point, you now get the decision of what film will go forward into our sort of little wild card box. It can be your film. It can be Mary's film. It's completely your choice. So which film would you like to put forward?
Forward the one I was alluding to earlier.
Okay.
Which is Wes Anderson's Bottle Rocket.
Bottle Rocket. Excellent. So I must admit, as much as I love heist movies, I do need to actually dig deeper into the catalog myself. So I've not come across this one. But if it's Wes Anderson, I'm thoroughly intrigued by the premise already.
I'd say it's his most genre film, because normally his films are kind of hard to pin down, whereas this feels very much like a crime and a heist film, and it has Owen Wilson and Luke Wilson in it. I think it's from 1996, and it's got some of the bands he then plays a lot, like the Kinks and the Rolling Stones and stuff like that, and it feels quite accomplished for a debut. It still feels like he's kind of honing his Wes Anderson-ness, but in a way that makes it more interesting as well, because it's quite raw and slightly different.
Okay, well, I'm definitely intrigued by that. Hopefully, I get to watch it for the podcast at some point. So, David, if people are too eager and they don't want to wait for this film to necessarily come up, is there a way in which they could view it?
Yeah, you can check it out on most rental services. So, Apple, Chili, Amazon, all of those kind of places. You can go rent it, or possibly there'll be some physical media releases out there somewhere as well. But yeah, if you want to check that out, even if it doesn't make it from our sort of lucky dip sort of draw in the future, or if we pull from that collection another time, then yeah, you can go still check it out and see all the fuss that Chris was talking about there. So yeah, thank you for that suggestion, Chris. We'll have our debut of What Is Chosen at the end of the year to sort of start off our next chain of movies for next year, and I'm sure any of the films that are in that kind of collection are going to be a fantastic start. So yeah, well, thank you guys for joining us on our Christmas episode. It's been lots of fun, lots of variety there, talking about some very different films. You know, we're talking about dancing robins, all being felt characters. We got some harrowing stories set in Ireland associated with Angela's ashes, and then we got just a very bizarre, strange Olive the Other Reindeer. But thank you for talking to us all about them. It's definitely been a very interesting and kooky conversation, and yeah, well done on the Endgame performances there. Some fantastic puns, and if anyone at home checks out any of those movies, do let us know, especially if you go through the binge of the mystery movies. That one sounds very interesting. Please do let us know, where can the people find you, Chris, first of all? Like I said, well done on the Endgame win there. But where can the people find you in terms of your writing and your socials?
Yeah, so I'm Chris Connor96 at Chris Connor96 on Twitter while it lasts. And I need to just remember my got some new logins in case all goes
Mastodon, Hive, did it?
Hive was one. Hang on, which I think is at Crisco96, which is also my Instagram. So you can find my ramblings about all things pop culture there.
Cool. And any cool articles you got coming up, or that's been coming up?
Hopefully got some bits around Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which is dropping on Netflix next week, I think. So all being well, I spoke to the head puppet designer last week, and that should be live at some point this week, hopefully. And hopefully the composer Alexandre Desplat as well, who's one of my all-time favourite composers. So I'm looking forward to that.
He is great. I was actually walking through London the other day, as I said before, when the music came in my head from Deathly Hallows, when it's like the Ministry of Magic. I always think of that when people are like shuffling around and going through the like work routine. Mary, where can the people catch yourself, and any projects you've been up to recently?
I haven't migrated off Twitter yet, so I'm just at Miss Mamie Peas there, and on Instagram as well. We've got a couple of movie scramble pods coming out that we've recorded recently. All Quiet on the Western Front being the sort of bigger one, which is just one of the best films I've seen in a long time. On Jump Cut just now, I've got a couple of pieces that I'm really proud of. One is an introduction to German expressionist cinema ahead of Nosferatu being remade, and I have a nice little gender politics piece on nice guys in the film Barbarian.
Ooh, okay, so yeah, lots of big stuff coming out there, and lots of deep dives into the classic stuff as well, which is awesome. So that's the great thing as well, is you can have something like Pinocchio, which is like coming out now, but then you can still go back and watch like Nosferatu and all those like classics, which just don't go away. They always stick. Yeah. Anything lastly from yourself, Craig?
Merry Christmas to all, and an all whatever, I don't know, dancing dogs in the sky or whatever, like whatever people are enjoying for Christmas these days.
You're punned out at this stage, so yeah. Right. Well, thank you everyone. For...
Like, how are you gonna eat, drink, and be buried? No, like, come on, like.
That's definitely one to watch for the future. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Yeah, have a wonderful Christmas. Like I said, I hope whoever you're with or whatever you're doing, lots of fun things you can be watching, as we've mentioned throughout this entire episode. And lots of great moments to sort of catch up on some of the movies we've been watching the entire year. Watch some of the short films and TV specials that we've been talking about today. Maybe some of the pun-filled films that we've been discussing in the Endgame. And yeah, once again, like I said, please, if you are able to, if you go over to our Just Giving page, Well Good Movies, we have our donation page there for our Endgame special, which will be next time. We got all teams coming up and facing off against each other in a fun animal-themed Endgame. It's going to be lots of fun. And yeah, we'll be back in the new year where we sort of recap our movie vault and we talk about all the things that have gone in and haven't made it in over the past year. And then we will have that film that is chosen from our random collection, which will start us off for next year. So thank you once again, Mary and Chris. And everyone at home, have a very Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
To keep up with the latest episodes of Well Good Movies, you can listen to us on all your usual podcast outlets, including Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Don't forget to follow us, subscribe, and rate us where you can to keep our podcast growing. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Well Good Movies to keep up with the latest news and highlights from all our episodes, as well as tell us what movies you want to be discussed in the future. And if all of that isn't enough, You can also find us at our website, freshtakehub.com/wellgoodmovies, where you can catch all our episodes along with videos and articles deep diving into the worlds of film and television. So what are you waiting for? Go check out the film we'll be discussing in next time's episode.
Come on now, baby Jesus. No more messing.